Hi, Panda here from Arctic Panda Popz, and today we're showing you some out of bounds for an indie game called Pupperazzi. Now, Pupperazzi is a game where it's filled with dogs and you go around and take pictures, but dogs kind of more or less own this world. They ride bicycles, they're playing on the beach, at the arcade. And I found in this game there's a special camera called the mini UFO camera, which actually sort of breaks the game in a way, where you can go out of bounds, and I'm just going to show you some of those. But before we do that, I want to give a big shout out to Shesez. He's another YouTuber who does a lot of these out of bounds videos. He's got a series called Boundary Break. I'll put a link to his channel and below, so make sure you go and check out their content and all the videos they've done. But I've not seen them cover Pupperazzi, so when I found you could go out of bounds, I thought I'd check it out. Let's get to it. Right, the first level we're going to be checking out is called Buppy Broadwalk, which is like a seaside, and it's got an arcade and all that sort of things. Now, if we go out into distance, you'll see these ships in distance, but surprisingly, they are not a flat texture. They are fully 3D modeled, and you can see here. Sure, they've got some basic textures on, but they're just in the distance. And if we go venture further out, you really see the sea line. So when we're far at the sea, you can see the ship there, but you'll also notice that it is just a flat texture. Especially if you come and see this at nighttime as well, you basically just see the rest of the skybox underneath, and you can see the stars as well. So usually when you're in the town, you can only go so far and you'll see a fence, but I'm going to show you some things up behind the fence. Also, you notice you're not meant to be out this far usually, and you can tell because the environment kind of just draws in as you get nearer. And some of the other things pop in. Now, here you don't usually see, you can see this lighthouse in distance, and originally I thought this was a lighthouse from the other level, but nothing around it seems similar. So just outside of this town, little seaside town, you notice it changes quite a bit. Now we're going to what looks more like a desert look. We've got a random tree here. Now what I thought was interesting, over here, there's some fully 3D modeled houses that you find in the street here, but you can't. As far as you can go, see this gate down here? That's as far as you usually can go, and you can't go past that. So, it's a little bit bizarre, but out of the bounds is this full 3D model building, including the name of the shop. I'm guessing it says something for dogs. There's some similar in the town. We've got some lampposts. We've got an unused water fountain that's not active. We've got some bus stops here. And what I found really peculiar is actually this car that's halfway in the sand and sort of vertical, like it's just been wedged in there. And we've got some other details that you might be able to see if you're on top of a building, but probably not very close up. We've got a stack of cars here, well, a row of cars of the same. This truck, more trees, and then we have this road going around the back. And you're thinking, I get the point, it's just a road. But nope, this is what's strange about this bit. This road goes straight into this cliff, not even a tunnel. Also, the wooden pavements as well, they just kind of, the wooden pathway just kind of carries on, usually go to that fence, so they've just carried on here. We've got some more buildings here, but they've just put basic textures on there. Another thing, you see this in the distance if you jump, but there's actually a full-on ship crash here, like a cargo ship with its cargo there in the sand. But those are just few of the slight oddities and out-of-bound things you can see in Buppy Broadwalk. Now for some hidden out-of-bounds sections in Lighthouse Cove. And if in Lighthouse Cove you see this road, and supposedly even those gaps you can't get past this barrier. Now if we could travel down here and follow the road, we notice the road will just come to a dead end. But what I also found interesting, at the top of here is another one of those statues again. I sure do love hiding these statues about. So usually when you go around taking pictures, you can't actually go past these rocks. But as you notice, if we get the camera a bit higher here, there's actually a beach, a bit of a broadwalk sort of path, and some two boats. Although this one boat is definitely parked up. But you notice like the water kind of like on top of the sand. There's some random umbrellas here, well, parasols. in the sand. And yeah, they've just randomly hidden a few things. And then this doesn't even connect to anything. It just kind of ends there. And a bit more beach. Yeah, definitely interesting how they put a few extra things here. Just sort of out of sight, you might be able to see a little bit, but not very close up. But yeah, it's kind of unfinished. And just the other side of these caves that you can't actually go through or in, you can see they're not really modelled much at the back. We've got this sand. We've got this random hole for some reason. Random bit of sand texture missing, and you can see the water there. But we also found interesting, there's actually a fully modelled boat up here on the grass. Very random, not quite sure why it's there. But I thought that was kind of an interesting thing there. The Mellowstone level has a few interesting out of bounds secrets to find as well. Because it's quite a large area. But there's only a small bit. You usually get to explore here and inside the cave. But if we go up here at the top of the water fountains, we already find very odd texture arrangements here. I'm not quite sure why they're like this, because this is a bit you'd never see. But things get a little bit more unusual out here. If we go behind, we can see the trees aren't anything. The trees are kind of just hanging out here. But my favourite oddity out of all this is if we go down here to where this piece of track is, you'll find out in a second what's interesting about this railway track. So inside the cave, there's a dog on a minecart that goes back and forth, and here he is. And there you go. So that's what happens when that dog goes through what looks like a dark tunnel. It is literally being animated, comes out here, flips around, and goes back. So that is what's hiding there. And you'll notice there's just a bunch of other slightly unusual patterns. This is definitely unusual. That's the full-on one of those water fountain statues. It's fully 3D modelled there. And that's actually a surprise to me now as I record this. And that is for this section here. Now, there's a hidden secret in one of the caves, but you can get it through other means than just outbounds. We're going to leave that for a second, but we'll move over and show you some more things in Mellowstone. So if we fly further down the valley out of where you usually wouldn't be able to go, there's this just random mini frisbee UFO by itself, just hanging out. And this is another bit of a valley that you wouldn't usually get to see. It's interesting to see how much of this valley is modelled. And once again, just some background trees that are just plonked there because they are just poking their heads out of this cliffside. They're not actually standing on top just from the distance when you're usually in that section. They're just of the trees. Also saying it's a little bit odd, at the bottom of one of these massive trees in the forest, there's a random, just a piece of grass by itself. A little hedge there for no reason. With the out of bounds camera, we can see that the monster, the lake monster in the cave, isn't actually just one monster. It is actually consisted of 3 donut shapes that literally just go under the water and come back out and rotate to give the effect of it looking like a sea monster going through the lake. Another thing I found interesting in Mellowstone, you see this door, and for ages when I was playing, I was thinking there must be a way to unlock it, but it turns out if you go with the special camera that goes out of bounds and just pop your head in, there really isn't anything. Just the randomly backs of what would be the cliff walls the other side and where the waterfall is. There you go for Mellowstone. So now on to Metropolis, and what I find interesting in Metropolis, there's actually quite a few buildings in the distance that are full 3D models. So they've got basic textures. So they're there. Same for all these skyscrapers in the back. And some of these even have the windows on, the back. But down here is what I find most interesting. Because you can go in that park, but you can't go any further. There's actually a fully 3D model street. So if we get a little bit closer, I'll be able to show you. Yep, there's a full street here. Lighthouses, animated cars, some buildings, and usually you can't even get down here. We've got some tunnels. We've even got this bridge under here. You can tell some things have clipped through other things because you usually wouldn't be able to go through here. So it's interesting. Also, that's what it kind of looks like underneath. we pull the camera back out here, you get a good idea of interesting what buildings put here, even though there's no street, there's just a footpath there. Some more trees, some more buildings. Interesting how they put windows on sides that you usually wouldn't be able to see. And there are even more buildings all the way out here. Including a tree, a gate, I think that's another street there. But what's always even more interesting, we've got full on this building here, some type of observatory, a bridge, more of these 3D model boats. Here's our compulsory, the statue's got to be in it somewhere. That statue has turned up again. This full on sea with bones for skyscrapers. Bone scrapers, a giant hydrant. And it's interesting how much of this 3D modeled as well, along with some more boats here. And that's one thing I found interesting with Pupperazzi. A lot of 3D models actually here. Usually a lot of games, if something's in the distance, they're very low quality. Most of the time they're even just like flat models, really, just like thin. So it's interesting these actually got some depth to them as well. And here we go, another fake street. Once again, 3D modeled as well. So usually down there, beyond those barriers is where you can go, but as you can see, other buildings here and a bit of a car park here. But you can tell these are just other models they've used in the other streets and packed them in, because this one even has the canopies for the bottom floor. The ground floor will usually be by the road, but obviously this isn't on a street. In game, and you see the tunnel that goes off and uses cars going into darkness. If you just come to the one side of it, you can actually tell they've modelled the back of this houses. Also, another one of our statue friends again. They do seem to like hiding those about. You can see it's very packed with trees and buildings and skyscrapers, but you can only see some of these from the bottom floor, so there's a lot more here detailed than you expect. Because it's not used to how far we go, that's why things are popping in and out. I usually wouldn't expect you to be at this height. But it's interesting seeing what details they've added. That's kind of, you really have to be pushing it to see it from the ground level. So there you go, I've shown you off some of the main levels. I didn't want to cover the special extra level. I want to leave that a surprise for folks who are playing Pupperazzi, but it's definitely worth checking it out. And there you go, a little bonus video style for a change. We don't usually do outbound videos, but if I come across something next time a bit like this, I will definitely make sure I cover it. So thank you for watching. As always, thank you to our patrons and Twitch subscribers and everyone else who's donated. You can find out how to support the channel in the links below. We really do appreciate it. And that's it. We'll see you next time. Bye.